can a person with an Itin number, meaning that they don't have a social security or they are currently working on their status here in the United States, can they buy a house?
Absolutely. So the government issues the individual tax ID number as a good faith measure to the individual. So they're filing taxes. So that person is showing that they're participating in the process. So they're filing taxes. They're in the system. So there are loans available for people to purchase, and not just one type of loan, but several loans to fit W-2 employees and business owners. So it's a very exciting prospect, and I'm glad that you're sharing this because a lot of people don't know that it's available.
Okay, great. So just to give context, if you have an Itin number, you can buy a house.
You're watching The Nuggets with Alex Lopez.
Hello, everybody. This is Alex Lopez, and today we're here in another episode of the Nuggets podcast. And once again, we have Laura Gonzalez from Powerhouse Mortgage. And today we're going to talk about the Itin numbers mortgage loans. So, Laura, once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing these nuggets with us. We will be discussing about the importance of knowing what the Itin numbers loans are all about, because a lot of borrowers are getting the benefit of using this financing. So welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Nuggets. And you don't need introduction, but for the ones that are new to the channel, new to the episode, let's do a brief introduction so they know who Laura Gonzalez is.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure being here. Pleasure meeting everybody. Laura Gonzalez. I've been a loan officer for 20 years now, so tons of experience with first-time buyers, Itin, move up, one-stop shop. So I'm here to share these nuggets with you, with Alex, and please pass these along to everyone you know.
Awesome. Congratulations on your 20 years doing mortgage loans. This year, it's my 20th anniversary of moving to Los Angeles from Ecuador. So I know what it's like to have, the milestone of accomplishment, you doing the loans 20 years, me, an immigrant from Ecuador, living in the United States for 20 years this year in September. All right.
A celebration is in order.
Exactly. And dude, I always tell this story about us, with clients when we're doing open houses, when I talk about your services and this and that. And truth be told, I had told him, we haven't met in person yet. And why we're able to have this relationship? Service. That is like, we told them the story that the reason we met was because we were hearing about the down payment assistance program from the city, the MIPA, LIPA programs, and we were working with someone before, and we decided, to find another person, and we found your information on the city's website as one of the specialties, because I always go like, who's the specialist on this subject? And that's how we found you. That's how we met. But definitely, it's time to meet. Especially we have this 2-decade celebration. So it's due. All right, straight to the point. Once again, we're gonna talk about Itin numbers. Itin stands for individual tax ID number.
Yes.
How many times I had borrowers that come to my open house or potential buyers, and they are like, but I have an Itin. So let's explain what the deal is with the Itin. So can a person with an Itin number, meaning that they don't have a social security or they are currently working on their status here in the United States, can they buy a house?
Absolutely. So the government issues the individual tax ID number as a good faith measure to the individual. So they're filing taxes. So that person is showing that they're participating in the process, so they're filing taxes, they're in the system. So there are loans available for people to purchase, and not just one type of loan, but several loans to fit W-2 employees and business owners. So it's a very exciting prospect, and I'm glad that you're sharing this because a lot of people don't know that it's available.
Okay, great. So just to give context, if you have an Itin number, you can buy a house. And based on what you're saying not only a single family house, your first home, you can buy, and not only if you're a W-2 borrower, you can be self-employed business owner too, right? Using
Yes.
Itin number. Okay, now let's talk about what are the requirements, because a lot of people, we had this client in this open house, same situation, Itin number and this and that, but she was like under the impression that she can qualify for the very minimum 3.5% down payment with FHA. So let's go directly. This podcast is called The Nuggets. Straight to the point. Here, have some nuggets, go and buy a house and go enjoy it. So give us exactly what are the requirements to qualify for an Itin number loan.
So the minimum requirement, and depending on your credit score, would be 10% down for you to purchase a home. You have to have a minimum credit score of 650. You could buy a purchase for a primary residence, a condominium. You could purchase an investment. If you own a home, you can also get an equity line of credit with an ITIN number.
Wow.
So
Okay.
those are options that are available as well. There's 30-year programs, 15-year interest-only programs. So almost all the programs, with the exception of down payment assistance programs, those are not available to ITIN holders.
Great. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So basically, it has almost the same availability as far as programs with a social security number, pretty much.
Yes,
It's almost the same. The only thing is, if you need down payment assistance, you cannot have it with IT numbers. Now,
that's correct.
what about manufactured homes?
Yes, you can use it for a manufactured home as long as it's on a permanent foundation and you're purchasing the land along with the home.
Purchasing the land. So if there's a lease for the land, you cannot qualify?
That would require a little bit more down payment, but it has to be on a permanent foundation, depending on the term of the lease.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
some are short-term leases, some are longer.
Let me share this with you. I actually had a couple calls this past weekend for manufactured homes. Very popular home. Everybody calling this property here in Monrovia, $344,000. The lease for the land is $1,300 a month. And a majority of manufactured homes, they have a lease for the land. So just to, know IT numbers, you say that it has to be a permanent foundation, which in this case is. When you say a higher down payment, how much higher are we talking about?
Probably 20% down, depending on the age of the home.
20% up. Got it. Noted. Okay. So let's go back, just wrapping this up as far as the requirements. 10% minimum down. Minimum FICO score 650. What else? You can purchase, refinance, and even get a HELOC, right? Home equity.
Correct. Yes. And you could qualify using your W-2, your paychecks, your tax returns to show the income that you filed. You could also, if you purchase an investment, you could qualify if you have an ITIN number solely based off the rent that you're going to be collecting on that property. So if the rent covers the payment, then that's all you need. You don't need to show any other income. So that option is also available. And you could also qualify using just your bank statements, showing the cash flow. If you're a business owner, you're showing your cash flow. We take an average of the deposits, and that's your income. So many options available.
Awesome. You just mentioned a bunch of benefits, a bunch of opportunities. So basically, if you're trying to buy a rental home, 4 units, as long as the rent covers the mortgage, you don't have to provide anything else.
That's correct.
That's awesome. Okay, that's very
That's
good.
a wonderful idea. A lot of people don't know about that option.
And you know what? and that's another episode. Back in the day, I remember only Banco Popular was the only bank that was providing loans for ITINs, and it was 20%, 25%, 30%. I remember when I started the business, this is an issue, not an issue, but a necessity that's been around forever. And now I'm glad to see, banks are basically more flexible. It's very, very common to hear, the IT numbers, but same as the MIPA and LIPA program. You need to know who specializes in IT numbers. And I'm not sure I'm mistaken. Our first transaction was an IT number transaction.
It was the gentleman in Ventura County.
Yeah, Miguel.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay,
Yes.
cool. Okay, so this episode is 100% directed to IT number borrowers because you can buy a house if you have an IT number. As long as you have 655 FICO score and above, of course, 10% down. They need to have taxes, right? File taxes, show income, and all that stuff.
Yes. So they have to show when they're issued the ID number, they're given a form similar to a social security card that shows this is the number that's assigned to you.
Okay. Now, I was looking at one of the challenges sometimes when we have IT borrowers. They have good FICO scores, they have good income, and no different from borrowers with a social security number. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to save much. Is there a 3.5% down payment option?
Actually, there is. That's there are funds that were set aside to different Indian tribes. So tribes that have earned money through the casinos, from the government. And what they're doing is they're lending to I-10 borrowers, 3.5% down. And it's similar to kind of a lease to own option. So initially they're purchasing it on your behalf. The house will be yours. Any payments you make and any equity, any value that you've earned in the property does become yours. And the person who purchased it on your behalf there's no prepayment penalty. So you can refinance at any time once your immigration status changes, or maybe you have more money to put down, or now the house has 10% value or 20% value because it's appreciated. So you could refinance into a regular I-10 loan. But it is a great option, very similar to lease to own.
That is if you have 3.5% down.
If you have 3.5% down, correct.
You have 3.5% down, basically.
Yes.
So because there's a lot of things that, mortgage brokers, banks advertise regarding. I think this program 3.5 was one of them, but then it's like, oh, what? I'm not gonna be on title. It's gonna be under someone else's or this corporation and this and that. So basically, just to make sure our viewers are understanding this, yes, you can put only 3.5%, but it's gonna be purchased under this. What should we call it? Corporation,
An entity. It's purchased under the entity.
entity. Okay, and so basically, you're gonna be making the payments to the entity.
Yes, you're making the payments to the entity, but you do gain, you do retain 100% control of the property. So you can sell at any time. If you have the equity, you can move into a different property.
Are they gonna be on title?
There's an agreement that's made between the entity and the home buyer.
But the house title will be held under the entity's name, right?
Yes, but recorded will be, it'll be documented that you're in control of the property. So you could sell, refinance, just do just as long as you keep making the payments.
Got it. Okay. So and if the property gains equity, you can refinance to a regular IT number, right?
Correct.
And that means
Or,
you're gonna be on the loan, you're gonna be
yes,
title, you're out of the entity.
out of the entity, right? And if your immigration status changes, then you could also refinance into any other option.
Okay. Now, if you wanna save this hustle, have 10%, pretty much, right? Now, let's talk about closing costs. So they gotta have money for down payment and closing costs, correct?
Yes.
Okay, no down payment assistant here covering closing costs or down payment. No, have your money and have your closing costs. And
Yes.
majority of IT borrowers, they do have that. They do have the savings. They do have the FICO scores. They do have the money for down payment. That's what I've noticed. Majority of them is kind of like they are aware. Yeah, we're aware that there's not too many options. And we have done at least what we can, which is save some money and have money for the down.
Yes. And they do also allow gift funds.
Oh,
So
good.
if you have a family member that wants to gift you the funds, that's allowed as well.
Okay, great. Now, what tips would you give to people that just watch this video and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I've been saving, but since I don't have a social, I didn't. I don't even have credit. So, what what tips would you give them to someone that you know what? Let's talk about someone that just came to the country and got an IT number issue. What would be the roadmap to years down the line they can buy a house with an IT?
Same tip I would give anybody who's interested in buying a house at all is to contact myself, to contact you, and to see what are the possibilities, what steps do you need to take in order to purchase, so that you know what's there, so we can help you plan.
Right. Okay. Now, um, with the IT number, they can apply for credit, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So they should, number one, apply for credit, open credit accounts with the IT. Number two, file the taxes, show your income. If you're a W-2, better. If you're self-employed, file correctly your taxes, showing the amount of money you need to make. What else? What else? Of course, save money, right?
Yes, save the money, have an idea of what's going to be needed for the price range that you're looking for. And great tip about the credit, you definitely have to have credit. So we can show you there's many ways to open it. You want to open it under your ITIN number, not
Right,
under a social.
right. IT number, exactly. All right. Now, rate. What are the rates? Because sometimes they are like, what? Why the rate is so high? So, what is the rate and why the rate is higher?
So the average rate for an ITIN loan is anywhere from 7 to 9%, depending on your credit score.
Okay.
In comparison, for someone with a social, it would be anywhere from 6 to 8, again, depending on the credit score. So it's about a point higher. And the reason is that not every bank does these, and there is it's more a private money loan.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, the reason, because sometimes I have the great pleasure to work with a lot of families, a lot of borrowers, and 95% of them, they understand exactly their situation and they understand exactly the benefit of using certain products. Miguel is one of them. He was able to purchase the property, getting the property under his name, title, because he bought it through a friend that he had, and things change in years. People changing. There was like a bumpy situation about like this is not going well. Luckily for him, we found you, and you were able to do the loan for him. He got out this potential difficult situation between him and his friend. So, and that's one of the benefits of it matters who you work with, because if you're talking to someone that doesn't know these options, doesn't know how to do these programs, that situation could have escalated to the point that he probably could have lost the house because he wasn't on title, he wasn't on the mortgage, close to his friend. and that. But being that said, at the same time, it's not that they are taking advantage by giving them a higher rate, but it's a higher risk loan. And you mentioned something important. You said it's private money. So, and not everybody provides these loans, correct?
That's correct. Not everybody provides a loan, but the great example about if people understand the product, that if they're comfortable with the payment, that's the most important thing. We don't place anybody into a home where they're in the risk of losing. Is just think about the equity that they're earning. All of that's going to be theirs as instead of paying rent every month. But it is private money, and there are the options available to the buyers.
Okay. Now, I think we gave the nuggets of how this program works. Um, Before we wrap this up, how long does it take to close an IT loan?
30 days or less.
Wow. Okay. Especially we work with Laura, so be sure of doing that. So 30 days or less. And it's great because sometimes even realtors, believe it or not, they are not aware of these programs. It was like we discussed the other day about the spot approvals. You know, there's very few people, very few agents that are aware of these programs that make a difference for either representing a seller, representing a buyer. So it is possible. On the 3.5% option, it says the home cannot be sold to another buyer. What does it mean?
That means that if the entity went into contract with you, you're the buyer paying 3.5% down. They cannot sell that home to somebody else. Only you have the authority to sell the home. So you
Okay.
don't have to worry. You have the security that the house will not be sold from under you.
So got it. So it protects when you buy
You are protected, correct?
under the entity. Okay. And basically if they get their legal status in order, they receive the social security, transfer the credit history from the Itin to the social, and basically that's going to be one of the steps to refinance to a regular loan. What are the rates today? March what 12 2025. What are the rates today?
So today for an FHA rate, we're looking at 5.875% with
Okay.
3.5% down. And for conventional, because I just turned one in this morning, it was 6.75%. And that person they put down about 6%.
Okay, now I asked this question because I want them to see the difference. What is the rate for an IT number on
For an
the
ITIN number, for the 10% down would be 7.25,
okay,
depending on the credit score. If you're on the lower end, it'll probably be closer to 7.75.
okay, awesome. Okay, now something that you and I were talking about yesterday. That's what we're talking about. Um, the fear of buyers and borrowers on buying a house now, even though there's the IT number option, when there's this risk of getting deported because of these new administration threats and all that stuff. What is I don't want to put you on the spot, like asking what advice would you give to them, but I think you can share what is the situation with borrowers now. What your potential borrowers are doing. What are they saying? Just to I'm just curious about that.
So it is a real fear. I've had some people stop the process because they're concerned. And I had one that moved forward because my suggestion was to add his son to the loan who has a social. So if in the unfortunate case that he was deported, then his son would still be here, his son would be untitled, and he would be able to retain the home or sell it or just have control of the direction they would take with the property.
I'm glad I asked that question because sometimes your answer leads to another question. So, I-teen borrowers, let's see, mom and dad, I-teens, son and daughter social. Can the four of them co-sign, be on the loan?
They can. They can. And let's just say that you have mom and dad I-10. There's no other option, or maybe the children aren't working. They're at the university. After the loan closes, if they're over 18, they could be added to the title so that you have some sort of security or extra security, actually, that you have somebody that has a social or is a U.S. citizen that has access to the property.
I'm glad. I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad you're here sharing that because those are potential scenarios that, like unique scenarios. So just to clarify, if there's mom and dad, they cannot son and daughter if they're working and have a social because sometimes it happens that the opposite. They say, oh, my son has a social, my daughter has a social. How come I'm getting this high rate? And the answer is because you need your mom and dad's income, and they only have an 19. And unfortunately, because of that, you're not going to go on a regular loan. You're going to go on a 19 number, even though you can qualify for a regular loan, but the income is not enough, right?
Correct. Yeah. And we always see what are the son and daughter, what do they qualify for on their own? And if it's not enough, then we add in the parents. But yes, that is why we have to go with the I-10 program.
I-10 program. Okay. And lastly, just to emphasize what you just shared with us, that the mom and dad get the loan, son and daughter were in school or high school or whatever, and they are over 18 now. They are 19, 20, or 21. They can be added on title.
Correct.
Right. And just to wrap this question about the situation with Itin and this new administration, the threats. Let's see, mom and dad get deported, and they are in the loan and they are entitled. If the son and daughter keep making the payments, they will still keep the home, right?
They will keep the home because most likely the bank or the person servicing or the company servicing the loan isn't going to know about
Right. I want to share that
deportation.
because it's also, believe it or not, that's a question that they don't know the answer. They think that, that happened and immediately someone's going to knock on the door and say, pay the mortgage. No, as long as you're current, nothing's going to happen because different entities, the one that's servicing the loan, the bank, all they care is just make the payment. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do in a situation. But if you're not making the payment, it's going to be a notice of default, and they're going to foreclose the loan. So
Right.
my suggestion, and hopefully that doesn't happen, but if that happens to you, item borrowers, just keep making the payment, pretty much, and hopefully you can fix. All right. Anything you would like to add before we wrap this episode?
Just I wanted to assure everyone that there are programs available. Education is key. Find out what's available for you for your particular situation, and so we can help you plan. Knowledge is the key.
Knowledge is the key, and it matters who you work with. So remember, item borrowers, first-time buyers, if you are one of them, there's plenty of options for you to buy a property. So, Laura, once again, thank you for sharing these nuggets with us and with you guys. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.